If you close your eyes and, think about the golden age of air travel, there was always one aircraft that just stands out, the Concorde.
Mm.
It was this iconic symbol of speed, of luxury, and just pure technological ambition. For a brief, dazzling period, that Delta wing, it really felt like the future.
It did.
It gave you the ability to cross the Atlantic faster than you could watch a long movie. It was the ultimate status symbol, and now, well, almost 25 years after its retirement, that dream of speed seems to be back.
It was a beautiful technological fantasy. It really was.
Yeah.
But we have to, immediately ground that fantasy in the brutal realities that led to the Concorde's failure.
Right.
That speed came at a truly untenable cost. And I mean that far beyond the astronomical ticket price, which today would be equivalent to something like $12,000 to $20,000 round trip.
Wow.
The operation itself was economically prohibitive. It relied on these extremely fuel-guzzling afterburners, and maybe most critically, there was the restrictive 1973 FAA ban.
The ban on overland supersonic flight.
Exactly. It outlawed all supersonic flight over land because of that disruptive sonic boom noise. So that meant the routes were limited, utilization was low, and the economics, they just couldn't close. The aircraft was retired in 2003.
And yet, here we are, we're watching this Denver-based startup, Boom Supersonic, move very, very rapidly down the runway with their proposed flagship jet, the Overture.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us to the central question we have to face. Is this genuinely a new technological leap forward that solves those old structural problems of noise and efficiency? Or is supersonic travel just fundamentally destined to remain an expensive, fuel-intensive piece of aviation nostalgia, best left for the history books?
We're going to analyze their specific technological solutions, how they plan to handle the noise, the design of their bespoke engine, and, of course, the aggressive timeline they've set. And the money. Most importantly, we have to evaluate the critical economic and regulatory hurdles they must clear to truly succeed, where the Concorde failed so spectacularly. We're evaluating whether this new iteration of speed is actually built for profitability and sustainability in the 21st century.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with Boom's core pitch. What exactly are they proposing with the Overture? And, who else is currently trying to claim the title of fastest jet in this high-speed resurgence?
So the Overture is designed to be a significant but, let's say, a manageable step up from conventional aircraft. We're talking about a commercial airliner. It's 201 feet long, and it's designed to carry between 60 to 80 passengers.
Okay, 60 to 80.
But crucially, its current configuration targets an all-business class setting, and that right there tells you a lot about their target market.
Okay, so right off the bat, this frames it as a tool for global business, not mass tourism.
Exactly. It's for high-value travelers who are willing to pay a premium for extreme time savings.
What are the key performance metrics then? The numbers that make Overture so attractive to airlines like United and American.
The headline numbers are a cruise speed of Mach 1.7.
Mach 1.7.
Which translates to about 975 knots, or around 8,805 kilometers per hour. And it does this at a cruising altitude of 60,000 feet.
So you're way above all the weather, all the other traffic.
You're way above it all. And that speed differential, 1.7 times the speed of sound, means the Overture provides travel that is, twice as fast as conventional subsonic aircraft when flying over water.
And what about range?
The operational range is set at 4,250 nautical miles.
Okay, a 4,250 nautical mile range is key. That handles almost all the critical long-haul business routes. I'm thinking across the Atlantic, a lot of the Pacific routes.
It does, even from the U.S. West Coast. The time savings on these routes would be, well, revolutionary. Take the proposed transatlantic route from Newark to London. Boom projects a travel time of just 3 hours and 40 minutes.
3 hours and 40 minutes. I mean, that's less than half the time it takes now.
It's a game changer. You contrast that with the typical 7 to 8 hour journey on a subsonic jet today. This combination of speed and range, according to Boom's own market analysis, makes over 600 daily routes viable globally.
600 routes.
They see this as a necessary replacement for many existing long-haul business routes. And they're aiming for a potential market of 1,000 supersonic airliners by 2035.
1,000. That is a massive production goal.
It is, especially for a segment that has been completely dormant for decades.
Right. But Boom isn't alone in this. They're not the only ones who believe that the demand for high speed is back. Let's look at this broader high-speed ecosystem and see, where Boom sits relative to its competition.
It's a great point. Boom is trying to occupy a very specific niche, commercial passenger transport, slightly above Mach 1.5, focused on range and business class luxury. It really helps to systematically compare their Mach 1.7 goal against the other players.
So who's pursuing the, let's say, the lower end of that new supersonic market, the ones targeting the most exclusive travelers?
That would be Spike Aerospace. They're focusing specifically on the private business jet market with their S512 program.
Okay, so smaller planes.
Much smaller. This aircraft targets a load of just 12 to 18 passengers and a cruise speed of Mach 1.6. So it's slightly slower than Overture, but still, significantly faster than any current business jet.
And what's their goal for, say, a transatlantic flight?
Their target time for NYC to London is about 3.3 hours. Their market strategy is purely high net worth individuals, which lets them bypass some of the regulatory complexity and the high utilization demands that commercial airlines face.
Right, they don't need to fly 14 hours a day.
Not at all. And they're also pushing this proprietary, quiet, supersonic technology. They made a very interesting decision to propose a windowless cabin.
A windowless cabin? How does that work?
They'd use high-definition digital displays to create the view. The idea is that it reduces structural weight and also helps with noise propagation inside the cabin.
That's a clever way to handle the structural challenges of a high-speed fuselage. Just get rid of the windows.
It's an elegant solution, in a way.
So who is Boom's most direct competitor, then, in the mass commercial space?
That would have to be Exosonic. They're also planning a 70-passenger jet and are aiming for Mach 1.8.
So slightly faster.
A little bit faster, putting them head-to-head with Overture on speed. And like, boom, Exosonic is leveraging military validation. They hold military contracts for supersonic UAV development.
So they're building credibility and tech with defense work.
Exactly. Their commercial jet design aims to cut London to New York down to 3.5 hours. So on those key routes, Overture and Exosonic are direct rivals. They're vying for the same airline customers who want to move 60 to 80 people very, very quickly.
And then we have the players who are moving beyond supersonic and into the realm of hypersonic. That's an entirely different level of engineering challenge.
Oh, absolutely. That contender is Hermes. They aren't aiming for Mach 1.7. They're focused on Mach 5 or faster.
Mach 5.
Their approach is truly revolutionary. Right now, they're focused on defense and intelligence, developing this combined cycle engine they call Chimera.
Chimera? What does it do?
It can transition from a standard turbojet to a ramjet for extreme speed. Their ultimate goal, though, is the halcyon passenger jet concept.
And what could that do?
Well, if they can solve the material and thermal science challenges of sustained Mach 5 flight, the Halcyon could theoretically cut a New York to Paris flight down to just 90 minutes.
90 minutes?
Yes. That makes it more than twice as fast as the Overture. It represents the ultimate paradigm shift in global transportation.
Mach 5 travel feels like a future that involves material science we can barely even grasp today. And it's important to recognize that this entire high-speed environment, from Mach 1.6 up to Mach 5, it's being enabled by new testing infrastructure.
That's where a company like Stratolaunch comes in. They're central to this ecosystem. They're providing the testing bed that's needed to validate these extreme concepts.
I have the giant plane, right, the Rock.
The world's largest flying aircraft. They operate the Rock as a high-altitude carrier platform. They use this massive aircraft to air-launch their reusable rocket-powered vehicle, the Talon A.
And the Talon A is the test vehicle.
Correct. It's designed to reach Mach 5+ speeds in a routine testing manner. The successful first powered flight of the Talon A back in March 2024, when it reached high supersonic speeds, that demonstrated that the infrastructure and the demand for extreme speed testing are robust. This is vital validation that both defense and commercial sectors are aligning to make high-speed flight a reality.
The technical goals are impressive, no doubt. But what's truly fascinating here is the transition from, a concept on a computer screen to concrete infrastructure and binding commitments. It's one thing to sketch a fast jet. It's another thing entirely to build a factory, secure government support, and lock in billion-dollar orders.
That translation from idea to commitment is where Boom has really excelled. It provides critical validation for their whole strategy, and it shows that major airlines are willing to invest actual capital based on Boom's promises.
So let's look at those commercial commitments. How substantial is that initial customer base?
The customer base is remarkably strong. It indicates that airlines genuinely believe in the market demand for speed. So Boom has secured a total of 130 orders and pre-orders.
130.
And that figure includes 35 firm orders, which means secured purchase agreements with non-refundable deposits, and another 95 options.
And who are the buyers?
These commitments come from major U.S. carriers, specifically United Airlines and American Airlines, as well as Japan Airlines. And the significance of this number, it just can't be overstated.
Why not?
Because these secured orders already represent the anticipated production for the first 5 years of the Overture program.
Wow, so that gives Boom a crucial safety net. Securing the first half-decade of production before the jet has even entered final assembly, that's a massive vote of confidence from the major players. It signals the premium market for speed is definitely there.
And that confidence is mirrored by governmental support. Boom has successfully courted the military sector, which provides both critical funding and, technological legitimacy.
What kind of contracts are we talking about?
They secured contracts and grants from the U.S. Air Force, including a $60 million grant from the AFWARX program, which is aimed at accelerating dual-use technology development. Furthermore, Boom is collaborating with Northrop Grumman to develop a special mission variant of the Overture for the U.S. government and its allies.
Now, that's a vital partnership.
It is. It injects a significant non-dilutive capital, and it suggests the Overture's airframe design has utility beyond just commercial luxury travel. It could potentially serve as a platform for high-speed military transport or even reconnaissance missions.
Okay, now let's discuss the manufacturing front. You can't deliver 130 jets without a place to actually build them. Where does Boom stand on infrastructure?
They've achieved a major milestone here. They completed construction of the Overture Superfactory in Greensboro, North Carolina, back in June 2024.
The Superfactory.
This facility is the physical realization of their business plan. It's planned to have an initial capacity to produce 33 aircraft annually, with modular expansion built in. The intent is to scale up to 66 aircraft per year with a second assembly line.
Which aligns with that long-term goal of 1,000+ aircraft.
Exactly. It aligns with their goal of delivering 1,000 to 2,000 aircraft over the next decade or two.
And before they even broke ground on the Overture factory, they had to prove the underlying technology. That's where the prototype, the XB-1, came in.
The XB-1, which people affectionately call the baby boom, was absolutely critical.
A 1/3 scale model, right?
That's right. It's a 1/3 scale demonstrator aircraft designed to prove the key aerodynamic and acoustic technologies, especially that Mach cutoff principle we need to talk about.
So when did it fly?
Its first flight took place in March 2024, and it achieved its crucial first supersonic flight in January of 2025, reaching Mach 1.1.
So it worked.
It worked. The successful conclusion of the XB-1 test program in February 2025 confirmed the foundational engineering concepts necessary for the Overture airframe. It gave technical validation to Boom's entire approach.
Okay. Despite all of this positive momentum, the factory's built, the orders are secured, the prototype was a success, the timeline for the Overture itself, it just keeps shifting. That suggests massive financial and engineering complexity still remains.
That is the point of greatest caution for any investor or analyst looking at this. The introduction date for Overture has repeatedly shifted since the program began. Initially, they were targeting 2023.
2023. We're well past that.
We are. We are now looking at the first flight being targeted somewhere between 2028, which is the optimistic internal schedule, and 2030, which is the latest public CEO estimate.
So customer deliveries are now in the early 2030s.
That's the plan.
That target date of 2028 for the first flight is one thing, but the certification timeline, it seems almost mathematically impossible when you compare it to existing industry standards.
It raises a profound risk question. Boom is aiming for full FAA-type certification by 2029.
By 2029.
Now let's put that into context for a moment. Boeing's 777-9, which is a variant of a highly successful existing subsonic jet, is facing significant delays and took about 12 years from launch to certification.
12 years for a derivative.
For a derivative. Boom, conversely, is undertaking two concurrent clean sheet developments, a completely new airframe and a completely new engine, the Symphony, trying to achieve certification for a totally new high-speed commercial transport and a bespoke engine in roughly 6 to 7 years is years. It's staggeringly ambitious. It's unprecedented.
Why does certification for a large aircraft take so long? And how does doing a new airframe and a new engine at the same time just compound that risk?
Well, certification isn't just about the flight test. It's about proving consistency and safety across thousands and thousands of pages of documentation. It involves rigorous material testing, fatigue testing of the airframe, massive amounts of data from flight test hours, and establishing reliable maintenance and repair processes.
So it's the whole ecosystem of the plane.
The whole thing. Now, when you introduce a clean sheet engine, like the Symphony, you add the complexity of proving engine durability, component lifespan, and performance consistency across all sorts of atmospheric conditions, all under the strict scrutiny of the FAA. The two systems have to be certified together, and any delay in one inevitably cascades into the other.
And that ambitious timeline is tied directly to the monumental capital required to finish the project. Where does Boom stand financially against that estimated total cost?
This is perhaps the most existential challenge they face. Industry insiders estimate that the required upfront investment to bring Overture to market, including all the flight testing, tooling for large-scale assembly, final certification costs, could potentially reach a staggering $10 billion to $15 billion.
10 to 15 billion.
Yes. By contrast, Boom had reportedly raised approximately $700 million as of early 2025.
To put that in perspective, they've raised barely 5% of the high-end estimate. That is a monumental gap to cross while you're also trying to beat that aggressive FAA clock. Where does all that money even go?
A lot of it goes into securing the supply chain and building out the tooling and infrastructure for mass production. For an aircraft designed to fly at Mach 1.7, the materials science is highly complex, so you have to fund the qualification of those specialized materials, build large-scale jigs for assembly, acquire sophisticated testing equipment, and crucially, pay for thousands of hours of complex flight testing required by the FAA and other global regulators.
And every delay costs more.
Every single year of delay means hundreds of millions in added burn rate. It just increases the risk of the company running out of funds before they can even start commercialization. The financial hurdle is, you could argue, even greater than the technical one.
Which brings us to the most complex part of the Concorde's legacy: propulsion and noise. Boom has to fundamentally solve both the problem of the deafening sonic boom and the hugely inefficient engine technology that plagued its predecessor.
These are non-negotiable hurdles. The environmental and regulatory failures of the 1970s have to be addressed first, and that starts with the noise.
Okay, let's define the original problem one more time. Why was that 1973 ban put in place? Why was the sonic boom so disruptive?
The ban was strictly due to the sonic boom, that shock wave created when the aircraft exceeds Mach 1. This shock wave acts like a continuous explosion, creating massive noise pollution on the ground. It was disruptive to people, to livestock. It could potentially cause minor structural damage, which is why Concorde was restricted to flying supersonic only over the ocean.
And Boom is betting everything on this concept of boomless cruise.
Correct. And this concept is underpinned by a verified physics principle known as Mach cutoff.
Mach cutoff.
And the successful flights of the XB-1 demonstrator confirm that this principle works in practice. The company reported that during the test program, the aircraft broke the sound barrier 3 times without an audible boom reaching the ground at the designated monitoring stations.
That's a huge technological statement. So let's dig deeper into the physics of Mach cutoff. How can an object break the sound barrier without the noise reaching the surface?
It's a very subtle interplay between speed, altitude, and atmospheric conditions. So the aircraft has to break the sound barrier at a sufficiently high altitude, say above 40,000 feet, but at a relatively low supersonic speed, typically between Mach 1.1 and Mach 1.3.
Okay.
Now, when the shock wave is generated under these precise conditions, it enters layers of the atmosphere where the temperature and wind gradients cause a crucial effect: refraction.
Refraction. So, like a straw looking bent in a glass of water.
That is the exact same principle. The shock wave literally bends. As the wave propagates downward, the different temperature layers in the lower atmosphere, especially the warmer lower air near the ground, they act like an acoustic lens. This causes the shock wave to curl upward without reaching the ground.
It bends up and away from us.
It bends up and away, creating an acoustic shadow on the ground.
That means boomless cruise relies heavily on sophisticated calculations and real-time atmospheric data, not just on the aircraft's speed.
Absolutely. Executing Mach cutoff consistently requires highly sophisticated algorithms. They have to process real-time weather data, localized temperature, pressure, wind profiles along the flight path to accurately predict the precise boom propagation trajectory. The success of the XB-1 means that Boom has validated their complex atmospheric modeling, which is essential for making this technology predictable enough for the FAA to approve it over land.
And if they achieve that consistency, what's the practical impact on commercial flight times over land?
The impact is route expansion, and that is the cornerstone of their entire economic model. This technology would allow Overture to fly over continents, including the United States, at speeds up to Mach 1.3.
Not the full Mach 1.7, but still.
Right, not the full cruise speed, but Mach 1.3 is still 50% faster than today's subsonic jets. This could reduce U.S. coast-to-coast flight times by up to 90 minutes. That time savings is what allows airlines to achieve the high utilization rates they need to make the Overture profitable.
And this technological leap appears to be moving regulators rather than fighting them.
The regulatory wind is clearly at Boom's back on this. For takeoff and landing noise, Overture aims to comply with stringent Chapter 14 noise standards. It means its takeoff noise should be no louder than current wide-body airliners like the Boeing 777-300ER. More importantly, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, has already recognized this shift. They've recommended a new noise certification standard specifically for supersonic aircraft, which would be applicable starting in 2029.
So global bodies are actively developing the framework to support this. They're paving the way.
They're paving the way for the return of high-speed civil transport.
Okay, now let's tackle the second massive hurdle, propulsion. The Concorde relied on its noisy and thirsty Rolls-Royce's Necma Olympus 593 turbojet engine. It used afterburners for takeoff and acceleration, which was great for speed.
But terrible for everything else.
Terrible for fuel efficiency and takeoff noise. How is Overture addressing the engine problem, particularly since the major manufacturers initially refused to provide a new engine for them?
That engine challenge forced Boom into a highly ambitious strategy: vertical integration. After major engine manufacturers like GE, CFM, and others declined to participate in the supersonic commercial market, they cited the niche nature and the engineering risks. Boom was compelled to design its own bespoke engine.
And that is the Symphony engine.
The Symphony.
Designing a new engine is, arguably as difficult and expensive as designing the aircraft itself.
Yeah.
What's the fundamental difference in design philosophy between the Symphony and the Concorde's Olympus?
The difference really lies in the fan and the bypass ratio. The Olympus was a low-bypass, pure turbojet with afterburners. This meant it generated thrust by accelerating a relatively small amount of air to extremely high speeds.
Which is very loud and inefficient.
Very loud and very fuel inefficient at lower altitudes and speeds. The Symphony, conversely, is a twin-spool, medium-bypass turbofan engine designed to produce 40,000 pounds of thrust.
Okay, what does that medium bypass designation practically mean for a listener?
It means that a portion of the air that's drawn in by the massive front fan, it bypasses the main combustion core. This higher bypass ratio is critical for two reasons. First, it improves subsonic and takeoff efficiency dramatically compared to a pure turbojet. Second, by moving a larger volume of cooler air, the overall jet exhaust velocity and temperature are lower. This results in substantially reduced takeoff noise and better fuel economy during the subsonic parts of the flight, like flying over land or during ascent and descent.
And the most important performance goal for this engine is achieving supercruise.
Yes, supercruise is sustained supersonic flight, in this case, Mach 1.7, without engaging afterburners. This ability is what separates the Overture economically from the Concorde. The Symphony achieves this through several proprietary design features. It uses a Boom-designed axisymmetric supersonic intake, which manages the massive shock waves generated when air enters the engine inlet at Mach 1.7.
And how does that intake and the specialized nozzle reduce noise and improve efficiency at both low and high speeds?
So the intake ensures the air delivered to the engine's compressor is slowed down to subsonic speeds efficiently. This prevents engine damage and maximizes thrust. Then, coupled with this is a variable geometry low-noise exhaust nozzle. At takeoff, this nozzle can change shape to optimally mix the hot core exhaust air with the cooler bypass air, which further muffles the noise.
I see.
Then at supersonic cruise, the nozzle geometry shifts again to maximize the expansion of the exhaust, optimizing the thrust needed for supercruise efficiency. This integration of components, using pretty conventional engine architecture and materials, is designed to reduce the overall cost and time of development compared to using radically new materials.
And the economic goal here is clearly lower operating costs for the airlines.
It has to be. Boom claims the Symphony will deliver a 25% increase in time on wing, meaning more time between maintenance checks and significantly lower engine maintenance costs. Combined, this is expected to reduce the overall airplane operating costs for their customers by 10% compared to using a derivative engine.
And it runs on SAF.
And this is a major strategic pillar. The Symphony is optimized to run on up to 100% sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. And that is Boom's primary defense against the massive environmental criticism they face.
Okay, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the true test of Overture isn't just whether it can hit Mach 1.7. It's whether it can be both economically viable and critically environmentally responsible in an industry that's so intensely focused on net zero goals. Speed historically collides brutally with both viability and sustainability.
And this is where the sources introduce the most challenging complexity. We have to address the massive fuel consumption problem directly. Supersonic aircraft are inherently fighting the physics of drag. To move a large body through the air at Mach 1.7, you encounter exponential increases in drag, which requires significantly more energy.
So it just burns more fuel.
So much more fuel. Due to factors like higher parasitic drag and the necessary engine design, research suggests supersonic jets are expected to burn between 7 to 9 times more fuel per seat kilometer flown than their modern subsonic counterparts.
7 to 9 times more fuel per passenger mile? That is an enormous gap.
It completely reshapes the unit economics. When you factor in the efficiency differences, the relative cost of fuel for a supersonic aircraft is roughly 25 times higher than for an efficient, modern, long-haul aircraft operating in economy class, like a 787 or an A350.
25 times the fuel cost. So airlines can only absorb that massive operational cost increase if the aircraft is just flying constantly, generating revenue.
That's the only way.
So for the airlines to make any money and offset that fuel-gulping nature, they have to maximize the aircraft's uptime.
What kind of utilization hours are we talking about for Overture to be profitable?
The utilization requirement is unprecedented for a premium aircraft like this. For airlines to manage these staggering unit economics, the Overture must achieve an estimated 4,000 to 5,000 flying hours per year.
4,000 to 5,000 hours a year.
This high number is essential for amortizing the aircraft's multi-hundred-million-dollar capital cost across a high volume of flights and paying passengers. That sounds incredibly difficult to achieve in practice. What does 4,000 to 5,000 hours a year actually translate to in terms of daily operation?
It means the aircraft has to fly nearly 14 hours every single day, every day of the year, globally, with minimal downtime.
14 hours a day.
To put that in perspective, even the world's most efficient, heavily utilized subsonic long-haul wide bodies, like the 787s running dense international schedules, they rarely exceed 3,500 to 4,000 hours per year. And that's due to required maintenance, regulatory checks, turnaround times.
And the Concorde.
The Concorde, constrained by that overland ban, rarely surpassed 1,000 hours per year.
That makes the Mach cutoff technology absolutely vital to the business case. I mean, if Boom fails to get regulatory approval for widespread overland supersonic flight, that utilization target becomes unattainable. The whole economic model just collapses.
Exactly. The overland routes are necessary to fill those 5,000 hours. A subsonic-only market doesn't require a supersonic jet. This makes the regulatory approval for boomless cruise the single most important factor for Overture's financial success.
Okay, let's turn to Boom's primary defense against this environmental criticism. Sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. Overture is designed to be 100% SAF compatible. They're essentially arguing that if the fuel is carbon neutral, then the efficiency concerns are mitigated.
The commitment to SAF is necessary for the program to even exist in the current climate. And Boom argues that SAF production can rapidly scale, following the growth curves of other renewable energy sectors. But aviation experts across the board cite critical limitations regarding the current state of SAF production that are just impossible to overlook.
What are those specific, immediate limitations on SAF?
Well, there are two main limiting factors. First, scarcity. Global SAF production is extremely low. It represented less than 0.2% of total global jet fuel demand in 2023.
Less than a fifth of 1%.
It's a drop in the ocean. Second, cost. Even if production scales up, SAF currently costs 3 to 5 times more than conventional fossil-based jet fuel. These factors mean that relying on a massive, immediate, and cheap scaling of SAF production is a highly speculative gamble for a project that needs massive capital investment right now.
And then there's the critical argument about how that scarce, expensive SAF should be allocated across the global aviation carbon budget.
This is the heart of the ethical economics and the reason why many environmental groups oppose the Overture program. Research suggests that if Boom hits its ambitious goal of delivering 1,000 Overture aircraft by 2050, that resulting fleet could consume at least 1/4 of aviation's entire remaining net zero carbon budget through 2050.
A quarter of the entire budget for the whole industry. Why is that allocation considered so problematic?
It's because of that efficiency gap we already discussed. Critics argue that utilizing scarce F in a less efficient aircraft is, well, irresponsible. The data shows that 1 gallon of scarce SAF burned in a conventional subsonic plane, say, a 787 carrying 250 passengers, would provide 6.6 times more passenger kilometers of travel than that same gallon of SAF burned in an Overture carrying 70 passengers.
So the core argument is that the limited supply of SAF, which is crucial for the entire aviation sector to reach net zero, should prioritize maximizing passenger kilometers.
Meaning it should go to the most efficient existing aircraft first, not the fastest, least efficient ones.
So Boom's success is fundamentally tied to an exponential scale-up of the global SAF industry that hasn't materialized yet, and doing so at a price point that doesn't completely destroy the economic viability of a jet that is already 7 to 9 times more fuel-hungry than its competition.
That is the profound challenge. Boom needs to prove that speed is not merely a luxury to be paid for with high ticket prices, but an economically sensible product that can coexist with global climate targets. This blends engineering with macroeconomic and environmental policy in a way that Concorde never had to deal with.
This entire deep dive, it reveals a picture of immense technological achievement paired with enormous financial and regulatory risk. The technology, particularly the acoustic solutions, is impressive, but does the global environment truly support a supersonic return right now?
Well, the regulatory environment, surprisingly, has shifted dramatically to be highly favorable to Boom, and that mitigates one of the key risks that doomed Concorde. The most crucial policy development was an executive order issued in June of 2025.
An executive order.
Yes, which explicitly directed the FAA to lift restrictions on supersonic flights within U.S. airspace.
That executive order is a game changer. It directly addresses the 1973 ban. It's essentially the government stating that they are willing to allow this kind of travel back into U.S. skies, if the manufacturers can prove the noise is managed.
It provides a massive boost to the Overture business case. It immediately unlocks the potential for those lucrative overland routes, provided, of course, they can prove the Mach cutoff technology works consistently across various atmospheric conditions, season after season.
And it's not just that order.
Not at all. The continuous support from NASA's Quiet Supersonic Technology Program, the QuEST program, and ICO's work on new noise standards. It all signals that regulators are not resisting high-speed civil transport. They are actively paving the way for its return.
To synthesize Boom's strategic position then, they've spent the last few years executing these foundational steps, but they still have the mountainous tasks of certification, production, and massive capital raising ahead of them.
Exactly. Boom has executed brilliantly on the early stages. They successfully proved the foundational aerodynamics and noise reduction tech with the XB-1.
Including that confirmed Mach cutoff.
Including the confirmed Mach cutoff for boomless cruise.
Yeah.
They have built the manufacturing capacity with the Overture Superfactory in North Carolina, and they have secured major airline orders, which validates market demand.
And the engine.
And the necessity of designing their own bespoke propulsion system, the Symphony engine, while risky. It ensures they control the efficiency needed for supercruise and full SAF compatibility.
But the remaining uncertainties are substantial, and they're mostly financial or environmental.
They are massive. The success of Overture ultimately rests not merely on hitting Mach 1.7, but on 3 external factors and 1 internal one. First, the ability of the global SAF industry to scale dramatically and affordably in the next decade. Second, the ability of airlines to achieve those unprecedented high utilization rates, that 4,000 to 5,000 hours per year, which requires the political green light for those overland routes. Third, the long-term environmental acceptability of an aircraft that is 7 to 9 times less fuel efficient than its peers. And internally, Boom must bridge that $10 to $15 billion funding gap while navigating an extremely aggressive certification timeline for a clean sheet airframe and engine combination simultaneously.
Thank you for diving into those sources with us. We've covered the technological breakthroughs, the XB-1 and the Symphony engine design, the production infrastructure, and the enormous economic and environmental hurdles that still remain.
It's a truly fascinating moment in aviation, where the romance of speed is being engineered to fit the economic and environmental realities of the modern world.
Boom CEO Blake Skoll has stated his intent to make supersonic travel accessible at the cost of flying business today. However, given the sources confirmed, the Overture burns 7 to 9 times more fuel per seat kilometer than subsonic jets, and given the global scarcity and high cost of sustainable aviation fuel. This raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over. In a world intensely focused on achieving global climate goals and managing a limited supply of SAF, is it genuinely possible to democratize supersonic flight and make it available at business class prices? Or will speed forever remain an ecologically protected luxury, reserved only for the world's financial elite.